On today's episode, Toughest Mudder Chicago, recap and statistics, and a conversation with the 2017 Toughest Mudder Series champion, Allison Tai. What has two thumbs and just won $10,000? This is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to the world's toughest podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's world's toughest mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the world's toughest podcast. The sixth and final toughest mudder of 2017 is in the books, and it was great. I was out there this weekend, and I had just a great time. It's fairly obvious, but I just want to mention this has been the biggest expansion year in Tough Mudder's history since they first began. They've done a great job this year, and I can't wait for World's Toughest and to see how 2018 shapes up. I know other than my mother and Matt B. Davis, no one is listening to this podcast to hear me. You're interested in the topic or the guest, but indulge me for 2 minutes and let me tell you about my experience at Toughest Mudder Chicago. Chicago was my fourth toughest mudder. When I go to those races, I go to run. I'm not doing social media or grabbing finish line interviews. I'm out there just like everybody else, just trying to get my 25 miles and contender status. And I finally did. It took me 4 shots at Toughest Mudder, but it finally happened. I had a shot in Atlanta, but I made a mental mistake and did not get 25 miles. My mental mistake was being too slow. I was worried that I had my shot in Atlanta and I blew it, but Chicago was a favorable course for me, and it happened. I needed 8 hours and 15 minutes to make it happen, but I'll take it. Oh, and a special thank you to 2 guys. Ryan Cray and Francis Lackner were at Everest all night long helping people get up. This is a personal thank you to those 2 guys. I am not a small man, so if I can't get up Everest by myself, I usually just take the penalty. The penalty in Chicago was too long to do that this time. The same with Operation. Those penalties were so long, they probably added 1.5 miles to each lap if you did them both. I did the penalty for Everest once, and then I said, I can't do that again. I'm trying to make 25 miles. I can't take that much time to do a penalty. Ryan Cray and Francis Lackner, thank you very much. I'm not sure which of you was on the left and which of you was on the right helping guys up, but the guy on the left pulled my butt up 3 times, and I sincerely appreciate it. When we get to Vegas, I would be happy to buy you a beverage of your choice. Before we talk about Chicago, I've got 2 things. First off, who told my kids about the pee? Before I flew into Chicago, my son said he heard about how people pee when they're going through the obstacles. It took me 30 minutes to explain that was just a joke. No one's that gross. Nobody is peeing in the obstacles. Secondly, which one of you peed in Kiss of Mud? Because you need to hydrate, friend. So gross. Let's talk contender numbers. I'll go slow, but if your eyes glaze over, just skip ahead 30 seconds or a minute. If you want to follow along, all these numbers are on our Facebook page, facebook.com/world's toughest pod. Here are the numbers for Toughest Mudder Chicago. 883 people started the race. This was the biggest field of runners. The second biggest was Europe, with 775. 496 completed 25 miles. This was the highest amount of contenders from any single race. Chicago had more contenders than Atlanta had runners. 56% of the runners qualified as contenders. This is the second highest percentage behind Atlanta with 61%. How do those numbers compare to the previous 5 toughest mudders? I'm going to list them by percentage of contenders from highest to lowest, and then I'll give you the grand totals at the end. Toughest mudder Atlanta, 444 started the race, 270 completed 25 miles, 61% qualified as contenders. Again, here's Chicago, 883 started the race, 496 completed 25 miles, 56% qualified as contenders. Toughest Los Angeles, 336 started the race, 153 completed 25 miles. 46% became contenders. Toughest Mudder Canada. 245 started the race. 91 completed 25 miles. 37% qualified as contenders. Toughest Mudder Europe. 775 started the race. 254 completed 25 miles. 33% qualified as contenders. And finally, Toughest Mudder Philly. 717 started the race. 208 completed 25 miles. 29% qualified as contenders. Overall, 3,400 people have raced Toughest Mudder. 1,472 have completed 25 miles. 43% have become contenders. So Atlanta, 61%, Chicago, 56%, LA, 46%, Canada, 37%, Europe, 33%, Philly, 29%. Overall, 43% of the people who ran a Toughest Mudder completed 25 miles. There's a question online about double counting or people being counted multiple times. For example, Melissa Sharkbait Dugan ran all 6 races. So she counts as 6 of those people in the 3,400 people who have run Toughest Mudder, right? Yes. But then she got her contender status 3 times, which is part of that 1,472 people who have completed 25 miles. That's also true. The reality is, if you take all the elites like Ryan Atkins, who ran multiple toughest, and all the non-elites who ran multiple races also, I'll bet there's less than 100 duplicates in that 3,400 number of people who have run. And probably less than 75 of those 1,472 contenders are multiples. So, yeah, there's some, but there's not enough to make that much of a difference. It'd be interesting to know, and I'd like to have the information, but I'm not going to go through 3,400 names and cross-reference them across 6 different races just to pull out 100 or so names. Who won the race? Let's talk about the Chicago podiums and your elite contenders for World's Toughest Mudder 2017. This weekend at Chicago was the final chance to qualify as an elite contender for World's Toughest Mudder 2017. Elite contenders will receive premium pit location, premium start line access, and qualify for the $50,000 bonus prize for winning World's Toughest Mudder and completing 110 miles for the men or 100 miles for the women. To qualify as an elite contender for World's Toughest Mudder, you must finish in the top 5 at a Toughest Mudder event. So, to become an elite contender, you need to finish in the top 5. 5 men, 5 women, 10 possible slots at each race, right? If you finish in 6th place, and the person who finished in 1st place already qualified, you are out of luck. The slots do not roll downhill. If you want to qualify for a championship race with those shenanigans, you'll have to find yourself another race series. So 10 possible new contenders. We knew Ryan Atkins and Allison Tai were going to take 2 of those slots, right? So yeah, there's 10, but really, how many new elite contenders came out of Chicago? How many do you think? The answer is 3. And one of them was a surprise to me. I thought he'd already qualified. Let's talk results, and then we'll come back to the elite contenders in a minute. First, the women. Your top 5 women from Toughest Mudder Chicago are: first place, Allison Tai with 45 miles in 8 hours and 14 minutes. Second place, Zoe Chazen with 40 miles in 7 hours and 57 minutes. Third place, Alex Chicarita Rodania with 40 miles in 7 hours and 58 minutes. Fourth place, Morgan Mackay with 40 miles in 8 hours and 18 minutes. Fifth place, Casey Northup with 35 miles in 7 hours and 32 minutes. Your new female elite contenders are no one. All of the top 5 women from Chicago qualified as an elite contender at a previous race. Not just the top 5, but the top 7 women in Chicago started the race as elite contenders. In fact, 3 of these top 5 ladies got kind of greedy with the podiums. Listen to this. Allison Tai has qualified as an elite contender 5 times. That's more than any other person, not just any other woman, any one. Allison finished in the top 5 in every race except Europe, and she won 2 of those 5. Chicarita is qualified as an elite contender 4 times. That's every race except Europe and Canada. Chicarita's 4 top 5 finishes are more than anyone else except Tai and Atkins. Casey Northup earned her 3rd top 5 finish at Chicago, joining other three-timers Sarah Knight, Austin Azar, and Lindsay Webster. You might be wondering, what about Lindsay Webster? Why wasn't she on the podium? Well, why wasn't she in Chicago is the question. As you might know, Lindsay won LA, Atlanta, and Canada's Toughest Mudder, and she was on the top step of the podium with her husband, Ryan Atkins, at each of those 3 races. So where was she this weekend? She was in West Virginia, running in a meaningless Spartan race. Well, if it was so meaningless, why was she running it? Lindsay won the Spartan Race U.S. Championship Series in July. Spartan has I think it's a 5-race series where they go around the country and they do their supers and their beasts. And they're televised on NBC Sports later in the year. She won the series in July. She locked it up. She couldn't lose. Her lead was insurmountable. She did the same thing last year. She won the series before the series was over. So last year, she sat out the last race instead of risking the injury. So Spartan changed the rules this year. Here, I'll just read them. New for 2017, all racers must attend the final event in West Virginia to be considered for any placement within the U.S. Championship Series. Racers not attending will not be eligible for any prizes or money awards and will be removed from the final standings. So, how did Webster do over there? She finished in 3rd, 24 seconds behind the winner. So Spartan got what they wanted. They got a good race, they had their champion in the field at the last race, and, as a bonus, they kept one of the top Tough Mudder athletes out of a top Tough Mudder race. I'll watch the Spartan race when it pops up on my TiVo, but I'm skipping the commercials. I would have much rather seen Lindsay in Chicago facing off against Allison Tai. Allison Tai versus Lindsay Webster is one of my favorite budding rivalries. They're both strong racers. They're both Canadian, and neither one has won a World's Toughest Mudder yet. But for both of them, it's not a matter of if, but when. Lindsay's only raced it once last year, and she ended up tapping out early. Allison's run it 3 times, with her best performance in 2014 when she finished 2nd to Amelia Boone. But both of them have been dominant this year at Toughest Mudder, and that builds mental grit. That builds confidence. The mental strength is a real thing, and you can only build it a little bit at a time. And Webster and Tai have been building it up this year, brick by brick, race by race. Watching them at World's Toughest this year will be great. I say watching them. I'll be watching them as they pass me. I have been passed by those 2 women so many times, I can recognize the sound of their gait before I see them. Back to the results. The men. First place, Ryan Atkins with 50 miles in 7 hours and 50 minutes. Second place, Matthew Lister with 50 miles in 8 hours and 15 minutes. Third place, Tyler Nash with 50 miles in 8 hours and 26 minutes. Fourth place, Christopher Mendoza with 45 miles in 7 hours and 44 minutes. Fifth place, Miguel Medina with 45 miles in 7 hours and 50 minutes. Your new elite contenders are Matthew Lister, Christopher Mendoza, and Miguel Medina. I know what you're thinking. Christopher Mendoza? I know, I thought the same thing. This was his first top 5 finish at a Toughest Mudder. He placed 6th in LA with 40 miles, 8th in Canada with 40 miles, and finally 4th in Chicago with 45 miles. Also, he was on a bum wheel. He's been having foot problems, but he still put down 45 miles. Don't tell his doctor. Mendoza, of course, is one of the only 7 men to ever reach 100 miles in the history of World's Toughest Mudder. As far as Ryan Atkins, this is the 4th Toughest Mudder he ran in, and it was also his 4th top 5 finish. Also, it was his 4th top 1th finish. Atkins has won all 4 Toughest Mudders he's raced in. That's LA, Atlanta, Canada, and Chicago. Congratulations also to Tyler Nash, Nashty, as he likes on his bibs. To go along with his 2 top 5 finishes, Nash is the only elite male to run in 5 of the 6 Toughest Mudders this year. And he's in contention for the most Holy Grail miles. Remind me to talk about that in a minute. So, post-Chicago, we have 22 men and 16 women who have qualified as elite contenders for World's Toughest Mudder. I'm going to read you the names, and I'm going to read you the cities that they qualified in. The 22 men are Ryan Atkins, LA, Atlanta, Canada, Chicago. Austin Azar, LA, Philly, and Canada. Chad Trammell, LA and UK. Mark Jones, LA and Philly. Tyler Nash, Atlanta and Chicago. Glenn Race, LA. Ryan Woods, Atlanta. Luke Bosek, Atlanta. Van Tran, Atlanta. John Albin, UK. Michael Schutt, UK. Lucas Abram, UK. Felix Baker, UK. Trevor Psychos, Philly. Jordan McDougall, Philly. Jesse Bruce, Philly. Robert Killian, Canada. Sean Stevens Whale, Canada. Matthew Hansen, Canada. Matthew Lister, Chicago. Christopher Mendoza, Chicago. Miguel Medina, Chicago. The 16 women who are elite contenders are Allison Tai, LA, Atlanta, Philly, Canada, Chicago. Alex Chikorita Rodania, LA, Atlanta, Philly, and Chicago. Sarah Knight, LA, Atlanta, UK. Lindsay Webster, LA, Atlanta, and Canada. Casey Northup, Atlanta, Canada, Chicago. Zoe Chazen, Philly and Chicago. Morgan Mackay, Philly and Chicago. Kayla Coblin, LA. April Hartwig, LA. Suzanne Kraus, UK. Erlich Evanson, UK. Beth Albin, UK. Sorrel Lewis, UK. Adrian Alvord, Philadelphia. Michelle Ford, Canada. Stephanie Bishop, Canada. Your next two World's Toughest Mudder champions, male and female, will almost definitely come out of one of those 48 people. Here's the wrench in that theory. It's one of those double-headed wrenches. Amelia Boone and Hunter McIntyre did not run a Toughest Mudder all year long. They cannot qualify as an elite contender for World's Toughest. Now, they'll obviously qualify as contenders through the waiver process if they want to go that route. Amelia has won more World's Toughest than any other woman, and Hunter won the 2014 Sandstorm in the team division and has a close relationship with Team HQ. They'll both qualify for prize money, just not the $50,000 bonus for winning and reaching 110 miles for the men or 100 miles for the women. But here's the thing, neither of those two need the $50,000. I mean, I'm sure they'd like it, but as far as I know, neither of them are starving OCR artists. Boone has a career as a lawyer with Apple, and Hunter makes $1,000 every time a new episode of Steve Austin's Broken Skull Challenge airs on the Nashville network or wherever that is. No, that's true. Hunter is the defending champion on that show with the fastest time on the obstacle course that's run at the end of each episode. Every episode, some guy tries to beat his time, and every time they fail. And every time they fail, Hunter gets a check for $1,000. He's been the defending champion for years. Hunter's doing just fine. My point being, not being an elite contender is not going to keep either of those two from signing up and competing. And if they choose to show up, they'll move to the very top of the list of people to watch. Speaking of past champions to watch, Deanna Blegg just announced in a blog post that she's coming back for World's Toughest 2017. You can find that blog post at toughmudder.com or on our Facebook page, facebook.com/World's Toughest Pod. Deanna Blegg and Amelia Boone are the two most decorated women in World's Toughest Mudder history. Deanna is an HIV/AIDS survivor, a cancer survivor, and a 4-time World's Toughest survivor. Here's her World's Toughest resume. In 2012, she was the second place woman, third place overall with 80 miles. 2013, first place with 85 miles. 2014, second place team with 75 miles. And gave first place all they could handle. 2015, she got third place with 70 miles. 2016, she didn't race due to some health concerns, so she invented Blegg mitts in her spare time. When people ask, what kind of gloves should I get for World's Toughest Mudder? The correct answer is Blegg mitts. BLEGGMITS. Seriously, they're about $40 US, and they're worth every penny. They ship from Australia, though, so you should order early. You can Google Blegg mitts, or there's a link on our Facebook page. I hope she makes $1 million off those gloves. They are great. 2017 for Deanna Blegg? Who knows? Every female winner since 2012 will be competing this year, with most of the female second-place finishers there as well. Plus, there are all these new faces from the Toughest Mudder series to watch. This will be the deepest female field at World's Toughest ever, and it's not even close. I mentioned in the teaser that Allison Tai won $10,000. That's not exactly true. She won $15,000. $5,000 for winning Toughest Chicago, and a bonus $10,000 for winning the Toughest Mudder Series. The Toughest Mudder Series rankings are scored by adding the total miles completed at each athlete's top 3 races. The winning male and winning female at the end of the year will receive a $10,000 bonus prize. The winning male was Ryan Atkins with 150 miles. That's 50 from LA, 50 from Chicago, and 50 from Atlanta. Tyler Nash was second with 135. Christopher Mendoza was third with 125. Matthew Hansen, Mark Jones, and Evan Perperis also had 125 miles, but Christopher Mendoza got his miles the fastest. For the women, Allison Tai won the Toughest Mudder Series and the $10,000 prize. Tai had 120 miles with 45 from Chicago, 40 from Atlanta, and 35 from Philly. Tai ran her 120 miles in 23 hours and 12 minutes. Lindsay Webster was in second with 120 miles also in 24 hours and 8 minutes. Alex Chikorita Rodena was in third with 110 miles. So which toughest was the toughest? This was a hot topic on the community boards on Facebook this week. There were 6 Toughest Mudder races: LA, Atlanta, Europe, Philly, Canada, and Chicago. There are 4 people who ran all 6 races: Jim Campbell, Melissa Sharkbait Dugan, Mark James, and Sarah Knight. Sarah Knight is the only person to run all 6 and qualify as an elite contender. We're going to talk to those 4 people in a future episode to hash out once and for all which toughest was the toughest. But until then, feel free to let me know what you think, willhicks@gmail.com. Which Toughest Mudder did you run? Which one was the toughest? Last couple things before we talk with Allison Tai about her win in Chicago. I have a theory about why they have not released any information about the Toughest Mudders for the U.S. for 2018, and it ties in to World's Toughest Mudder 2018. Team HQ has announced locations for 2 Toughest Mudder races to be held next year, both in Europe. Toughest Mudder Europe UK and Toughest Mudder Europe Scotland. You can find more info on those on toughmudder.com. You can even sign up for them already. But why haven't they announced any locations for Toughest Mudder in the U.S. for next year? They're doing them again, right? Yes, and I will tell you exactly why they haven't announced the U.S. toughest locations yet. Because if they did, it would tip us off to where World's Toughest Mudder is going to be next year. So that means a few things. It won't be outside North America next year. They've already announced it will not be in Vegas next year. It's definitely moving, and wherever it moves to, I'm sure they'll plan on it being there a few years at least. It will be at one of the 5 North America locations that Toughest Mudder was held at in 2017. It will not be at Raceway Park. Raceway Park, New Jersey was the host of the first 3 World's Toughest Mudders, and there are still a lot of fond memories of it in the community. If it were to be in Raceway Park, they would have started announcing Toughest Mudder venues for the U.S. already. All of that is 100% rock solid speculation. I am absolutely confident and possibly correct on every bit of this information. None of this is inside info. If I had inside info, I wouldn't be able to talk about it. No one has told me anything. So, I am free to tell you the location of World's Toughest Mudder 2018 will be held in one of the cities we just talked about: Whistler, LA, Chicago, Philly, or Atlanta. Let me talk about each one, and I'll put them in order from least likely to most likely. Least likely is Whistler. The great thing about the Whistler venue is the ski hill. That's because the Whistler venue is at a ski resort, which is full of skiers in November. The Whistler venue is bound to prioritize skiers over WT-emmers. I don't see Whistler as a possibility at all. The next least likely venue, I think, is LA. They're coming off 4 straight years at a great desert venue in Vegas. The LA venue that the regular Tough Mudder is going to be at in 2018 is a brand new location for Tough Mudder. And I don't think they're going to go from desert in Vegas to desert in LA when LA is just 4 hours away. I think LA is very unlikely. Philly's possible, but it will be cold. If they were thinking about doing it in Philly, I think they would prefer to do it at Raceway Park in New Jersey. So that leaves Chicago and Atlanta. They both have huge airports. They both have plenty of hotel rooms. They both have venues with lots of room to spread out and build things. Supposedly, the Atlanta venue is being sold to build a movie studio on it, but Tough Mudder just held a race at a freaking airport in 2017. So I guess anything's possible. If I were a betting man, I'd split my wager between those two cities, Chicago or Atlanta. One thing in Chicago's favor, they just had almost 900 people show up for Toughest Mudder Chicago. In Atlanta, they had less than 450 show up. Those are the top two cities I think it will be at next year, either Chicago or Atlanta. Before we talk to Allison Tai, let's read some iTunes reviews. This first one is by JReekin82, and it is written out. 5 stars, parentheses, Will Hicks voice. The review is 5 stars. It's exactly what I was looking for in preparation for Chicago's toughest race. Thank you so much for the helpful information. You helped me enter the race with a better chance at being able to give my best that day. Looking forward to meeting you. Thank you, JReekin82. I hope we got a chance to meet, and I hope you met your goals in Chicago. I met a ton of people in Chicago, and I'd be trudging along, and someone would jog up alongside and say, hey, thanks for the podcast, or I love the podcast. I ended up talking with a few people for a while, especially toward the end when we were all moving pretty slow. I was standing in the start chute talking to Eric DeMessage from last week's episode, and the guy kept looking at me. He was pretty sure that he recognized my voice, but he didn't want to be rude, so he didn't really say anything. But we started talking, and we talked for a few minutes. I know I got your name, but I did not have a pen on me, so I apologize, start chute friend. Anyway, I met a bunch of great people in the course also. Got to talk to Pinky for a few minutes. I never met her before on my last lap. We were both shooting to finish 25 miles before 8:30, and we were sweating it that whole last lap. She ended up making it in plenty of time. Well done, Pinky. I got a lot of nice comments on our last episode. Thank you for that. I appreciate them. Seriously. Podcast episodes are like your children. Of course, you don't have a favorite, but you totally have your favorite. Episode 37 is one of my favorites. The last review is by Ajukwa. 5 stars. This is funny. Well done, Ajukwa. I'm going to count these first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if you count the actual stars. 5 stars. This is a 5-star podcast containing 5-star information from a 5-star host with 5-star guests talking about 5-star events presented by a 5-star company. Keep up the 5-star work. Well done, Ajukwa. I hope you're happy. That's pretty funny. You can leave a review for the podcast also. Go to iTunes and search for Tough Mudder. We're the first one that pops up. Click our logo and then click ratings and reviews. Click write a review and type away. I'm happy to hear feedback. I look forward to it. Seriously, each week when I'm prepping for a new episode, I go to iTunes to see if there's any new reviews. You know when you're done after a long run, and instead of drinking water, you grab something with a ton of sugar in it, like a Coke or a Mountain Dew, and you drink it, and it's cold, and it hits that one part of your brain just right. I get a miniature one of those every time you write a review. Write a review. My brain will thank you. Our guest today is Allison Tai. Allison won Toughest Mudder Chicago this weekend. She also won the Toughest Mudder Series Championship and the $10,000 bonus that goes with it. It's time to talk to Allison Tai. Let's go to the phones. Allison Tai, congratulations on first place at Toughest Mudder Chicago.
Hey, thanks.
You ran 45 miles in 8 hours and 14 minutes. The only woman to reach 45 in Chicago. We're talking a few days after the race. How do you feel?
Pretty good. You know, I'm definitely more sore than I am post other races. Normally, by Tuesday, I'm ready to hop back on the bike and kind of get back into training, but I'm still just kind of a little stiff and sore all over. And I'm pretty sure it was those last kind of 2 laps where I really pushed through and just kind of tore some muscle tissue apart. So, but I think probably, later on in the week, I'll feel a little bit more human and less like a 9-year-old man.
This was your 5th toughest mudder and your 5th finish in the top 3. No one else, man or woman, has that many toughest mudder podiums. How does that make you feel as we ramp up toward World's Toughest Mudder?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. It's just been a really fun season, and I didn't really even know kind of what to expect of it. So the fact that I hit the podium, every single time was pretty nice to kind of wrap it up like that, because, you just never know. And especially when it's long distance racing, so much stuff can happen that will just launch you right off the podium. But I think I've just been super lucky this year, just in terms of, having that consistent training through Yancey and then just having fairly good days on race day. I had some struggles in Whistler, but I managed to still hold on. And then I even had some better days than that. So yeah, I feel like I've been really lucky this season and just been really consistent. So I feel like going into World's Toughest Mudder, that's pretty much the best case scenario I could have at this point. So I'm really excited just to kind of hunker down and really focus in on WTM now.
Not just podiums, but wins. You, Ryan Atkins, and Lindsay Webster are the only people with multiple toughest mudder wins this year. How does it feel to be in that
I didn't
company?
Think of that. That's pretty cool. Geez, I feel like I'm probably like the black sheep in that one, the odd duck out, but I'll take it. I would never not want to be in the group with Ryan Atkins and Lindsay Webster, that's for sure. But yeah, it did help that Lindsay didn't show up those 2 that I won. So.
You won the Toughest Mudder Series title against Lindsay Webster with your performances in Atlanta, Philly, and Chicago. You both completed 120 miles, but you were faster by 56 minutes. It's not exactly head-to-head, but how does it feel to beat Lindsay Webster?
Well, it was kind of surprising. So when I showed up, I didn't actually do the math. I kind of lazy. So I thought that I needed 50 miles to win the series. So I thought, well, you know what, I'll shoot for 50. Who knows if that'll actually happen. But it'll be kind of like, one of those goals that maybe can be achieved, and I just wasn't really sure. And then when I got to the start line, the announcer, of course, made a big deal about me getting to 45. And then, so I don't know how many laps. So I guess 7 laps in, I came around and I was like, okay, so I'm just going to do, because it was for 40 miles. I said in my head, I planned it the entire lap. I'm just going to do one more lap and I'm going to do it nice and easy. And I'm just going to enjoy myself. And it's going to be awesome. And I get in and my pit crew is like, so you're going to do 2 more laps, but you're going to have to run faster. That is not what I planned this whole last lap. I just want to do an easy lap. But then when they told me, there's one fellow there that I didn't know him, but he just jumped in and he was just awesome. He was like, you're going out there and you're doing 2 more laps. You have an hour to do each lap. Eat your pudding and go. So, he kind of drove me back out. And then at that point it was like, okay, now I have this new goal that I'm running for. And it was pretty motivating and pretty fun just trying to chase it down.
I've got more real questions, but tell me about this pudding. What do you use for fuel?
I know. The joke was that I should probably start getting sponsored by Cozy Shack because I'm always shoving pudding in my face in the pit. But I just find I get really, even this time, I just get really nauseous and dizzy and gross. And it gets worse if I just have sugar. But I mean, to be fair, if I sat around eating bags of sugar all day without any sort of effort, I would feel disgusting and dizzy and gross. So I just started eating, I ate some rice bars, and then I have this Cozy Shack rice pudding, but I'm always shoving it in my face, and I'm always nauseous, right? So I'm force feeding it in and crying as I do because I just don't want to eat it. And I don't know if I'd be a very good spokesperson really. Force feeding yourself is totally disgusting looking pudding. So
I cry when I eat your food. Buy some.
I know, right? I hate my life. Spoonfuls of pudding. This will make it feel better. But so I just go in and I just pound the pudding down and then head back out, and that seems to be kind of the best case scenario at the end of the race, because I oftentimes, as soon as I start getting nauseous, I'll just start forcing gels down, really sugary, goos or whatever, and then I just feel even worse. So pudding is something I can still get down, but just doesn't make me feel as sugar rush.
Everyone asks questions about fueling for World's Toughest Mudder, what kind of food do people eat? What do the elites eat? But that is, I think food and the fuel is the most personal, Like what works for one person will not necessarily work for anybody else.
Yeah, and for the longest time, I was kind of known for Oreo cookies. Like I'd have a whole like satchel of Oreo cookies in the front pocket of my waist vest. And just one day they stopped working. Like they were too dry, and I just had that's all I brought for one race almost. And then, so it just goes to show you that even if you have something that works, I always have multiple options because you just never know. And like one day, it's like your whole fueling strategy goes out the window, and you have to reinvent it on the fly. So.
The Toughest Mudder series title comes with a $10,000 bonus prize. What's the Tai family been saving up for?
We just got a travel trailer, and that was actually untied to the thing at all. But we got this just tiny little camper that we can just hook to the back of the truck, and so we're going to go camping this week. It's just really fun for the last week before my daughter goes back to school. So it was actually funny because Phoebe was talking to my husband like via text. And so between two laps, she was like, "You better run faster. Your husband already bought a trailer with your money." So, yeah, it was really cool. That's definitely motivating.
Knowing that you had a trailer bill waiting for you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he actually went and picked it up that night. But yeah, it was funny because it was just the way that life worked out. And I realized he was picking up a trailer this weekend. But yeah, everybody thought that was pretty funny.
Even though you beat her for the series win, Lindsay beat you the 3 times you raced head-to-head in Atlanta, LA, and Canada. What will it take to beat Lindsay Webster at World's Toughest Mudder?
Oh, gosh. It's one of those things that, like, as much as Lindsay seems like a cyborg, everybody has good days and everybody has bad days. And it just depends on the day and the conditions and everything. I think she's close to unbeatable for sure, but I don't think she's 100% unbeatable because I don't think anybody is. I think it just depends on the day and who knows. But I think either way, honestly, it will be really, really awesome to watch the women breaking 100 miles. And I think Lindsay has probably one of the better chances, that's for sure. I mean, we have Amelia Boone and stuff like that that are coming out to break it. So there's, a lot of just excitement around the women's race this year, and I think that's more the exciting thing. I was actually kind of bummed that Lindsay wasn't in Chicago because I think there's a good chance she could have broken 50. So that's almost the first thing that I kind of crossed my head after the finish line is like, damn, man, if Lindsay was here, like she probably could have nailed that 50 down. I personally believe that she definitely could have done it, right? So it would have been pretty cool if she would have been able to make it and break the 50 because, I mean, this is such a new sport, right? And especially women in this sport, it's very new. So I think it's also kind of a very different sport because it's not like that competitive rivalry that you often get in other sports. It's, we're all very excited about one another's goals and we all just kind of push ourselves to achieve more and to kind of go for the next. So yeah, I think it would have been awesome to see her hit 50 in Chicago, and I think it's going to be awesome to see her hit 100 at World's Toughest Mudder. And the more of us can do that, the better, right? And the more we can push each other to that, it's just going to be that much neater to be a part of that, right? Because it's a new sport, and how many times do people get on board with a new sport like this and just like ride those initial waves? It's pretty neat being a pioneer in something that's just so new and so awesome and clearly going to stick around for a long time.
Even though the Toughest Mudder series has been largely about you and Lindsay, once World's Toughest rolls around, there's going to be a lot of past champions to compete against also. Amelia Boone, Deanna Beleg, and Stephanie Bishop have all talked about their plans to be in Vegas this year. How do you feel about that competition?
Oh my gosh, yeah, just amazing. Like I say, Lindsay and Amelia or whatever, but it's not. The race is so deep. Like even in Chicago, I guess there was the most elite contenders for the women out of any race yet. At least that's what I heard. Again, I'm not really good with numbers or math, but I'm more just good in like, do I keep running? Okay, yeah, I got this. But I'm not doing math split or lap splits or anything like that. That's for sure. But so I didn't do the math on that, but I did hear that there was more elite female contenders in Chicago than there was at the other races. So it's like the field just continues to get kind of deeper and deeper, and having all those past champions back. I mean, even Deanna, she, just having her back alone, I think that is going to mean a lot to a lot of us out in the community. She's certainly like just a hero for so many of us, just in terms of what she has overcome and what she's capable of. And I mean, I've seen some recent photos of her on Facebook. I'm just like, oh my goodness, she has like muscles on top of muscles. It's just like, she's just a phenomenal athlete, a phenomenal person. And I think even just her coming back, it's just, going to bring so much to the community. And I'm personally super excited about seeing her on course, just crushing it again. So yeah, there's a lot of people that are coming to the race this year, and a lot of goals that I think people are chasing down. I think it's just going to be the best year at World's Toughest. This is not the year to miss, that's for sure.
You mentioned the field at Chicago. The top 7 women finishers were all previously elite contenders. There wasn't enough room on the podium for all of them.
Yeah, and that's what I think everybody was talking about, so how deep the field was. And it's just awesome because it just keeps building, right? And especially for the women's side. There was a time back when I first started obstacle racing where you just didn't have that depth of the field, but it's just across the board in obstacle racing that just more and more women are coming out and just pushing themselves right to the limit. And then it helps the rest of the ladies out there really push too. So it just kind of just keeps building this momentum. And it's just, it's really, really neat to be a part of. Let's
talk about Chicago. How did you feel at the start of the race?
You know what? I never feel the start of those races. I just, my fear of heights, I guess, is I'm not really afraid of heights. Like Kong doesn't bother me. But I hate the feeling of falling. And so there's some obstacles there that definitely challenge my bravado, that's for sure. And then, I just was a little tight from being on the plane, and I'm away from my family. So I wasn't feeling 100%, but I never am going in. And I think that's just like part of the process is just being like, okay, so you don't feel great. Your neck's kind of tight from sitting on the plane, and your hamstrings are a little this. But I think it's just a part of like doing more and more of these races where you realize that you don't have to feel 100% before the start of the race. As soon as that gun goes off, you're just, you just all of a sudden 2 steps in, you're in the flow and you're loving it. And you don't even remember that your neck was tight before the race happened, right? But yeah, especially with these ones, because it's just like, it's a very long day waiting for the gun to go off, and then you get to the venue, and then it's even longer, sitting around waiting for the start. And I think that can cause you a lot of anxiety if you're trying to, feel perfect. But if you just realize that, once the gun goes off, things are going to go as they go, then it's just, it's a lot easier to take the pressure off yourself for not feeling 100%.
You in the front pack came out pretty fast. You finished the first lap.
Oh my gosh.
you finished
way too fast.
Well, tell me about it. You finished the first lap in 36 minutes.
And I slowed down. I was like, what is happening? So Chikorita, I love her. I love racing with her. She's so much fun. I don't know if you saw the finish line video, but I just gave her this huge hug at the end because it was just so awesome racing with her all season. She has been like a longtime hero of mine, just in obstacle course racing in general. And I actually, for the CBS guys, I was joking. They're like, so just describe Chikorita's, racing character. And I'm like, I feel like she's like the Steve Prefontaine of endurance OCR. Like she just goes out like a lightning, right? And she just races all from the heart, and she just like throws it down as soon as the gun goes off, and races hard and aggressive, and just really sets the pace. So yeah, this time I was like, why are we running with Ryan? Like, I feel like maybe this is too fast. So I think about 3/4 of the way I actually dropped back a little, because I have a hard time actually burning myself out just because I don't have those like really high end speeds. I have like, just a really aerobic base. So I can jog quite fast before like I end up redlining. My red line is pretty far out. But as soon as I hit that red line, I'm done, right? So I ended up just backing off the pace, probably 3/4 of the way through the lap, and then kind of cruising through the end and trying to hold that pace. But yeah, we started off like a rocket, and it was fun because it was so flat, right? And it was impossible to hold back. And yeah, I had a lot of fun that first lap. And then too, though, with obstacles, like for toughest, it's like you don't have any obstacles for the first however long. So it is advantageous to go out like pretty aggressively and get past the obstacles. So, I mean, normally in an endurance race, I would be like, why would you go out so hard? But there is, that advantage to being at toughest and being able to run fast without redlining at the beginning, just to get through as much mileage as you can before those obstacles start opening up.
Chikorita was ahead of you at the 10-mile mark. How were you feeling then?
Pretty good, I guess. I can't really remember the 10-mile mark, but because the problem was I didn't see her when I passed her. So I got in, I think, was it lap 2 or lap 3? Somewhere, and people started yelling that I was in first place. And so, like, Phoebe, she was at the top of, just beside one of the obstacles, and she's like, hey, way to go, you're in first. I'm like, nope, Chikorita. And then the next person, nope, Chikorita, I'm still chasing her down. And they're like, no, I think you passed her. And so then I was worried that she like went off course or something because I didn't see her. But yeah, it was just one of those things where she pulled off to the side and I kept running past and just didn't even notice. But so yeah, I didn't even notice that I pulled into first. And then it was kind of like my pit crew. I knew that they were watching the race quite closely, right? So yeah, they informed me that I had moved into first place, and the rest was from there, just holding down that lead.
Yeah, by mile 30, you had almost a half an hour lead on second place. What was your thought process there, or what was your pit telling you?
I think, well, at that point, they were like, we were just trying to go based on more like a mileage goal rather than trying to secure a place. So I think at that point, the focus just shifted from like winning the race to like, okay, so now what are we going to get mileage wise? And I knew after Atlanta, so I burnt myself out mentally and emotionally like fast in Atlanta, just trying to hold the lead down, like just running and thinking about placing and speed. And so I kind of made this pact to myself, like you work hard and you don't settle. And so that's something that Yancey tells me a lot, is just don't settle. You work hard, you don't settle, but you don't like fret about the race or where people are, where you are, because that just wears you down. So yeah, I just kept on trying to keep it my own thing and like just focus on what kind of effort I was putting out and not really care about where I was or where anybody else was. So yeah, and then it just became very like mileage based at the end, which was great because I also tend to kind of bag it a little bit at the end. So like, I just want to walk now. Can we just have like a walk lap? Is that a thing? Can we do that? And then, yeah, when I got back in, they were like, no, you can't walk. You can do 2 laps faster than you're doing right now. Do that. All right. So, yeah, it was really cool just because it got me to push past that barrier that I normally push through. And I think that's kind of the magic of this race for me, is that I really had to like throttle down for those last 2 laps. And I just was feeling awful and I just kept pushing, and it was the most phenomenal feeling ever. And, kind of hard to describe. And you're like, oh my gosh, it was awful. I felt like, falling down, passing out the entire lap. It was wonderful. But, yeah, to be able to push through when it hurts right at the end there, I think is a really neat thing.
When your brain is telling you, hey, let's just take a walk lap, how do you tell your brain, no, we're going to run now?
I think what mostly did it for me was because the course kind of did seem to clear by the end, and then it started to rain and the ground was getting really slippery. So it was kind of hard to find traction, especially that last lap there. So I knew I was putting out a lot more effort, but I wasn't sure if I was actually moving any faster. But I'd run past these people. Like there was this one couple, and every time I ran past them, they were running. And I'm like, if those people are not walking, like they're not, I don't know what they're out here for, like mileage wise or not. Every time they were running, and they just like, I'm like, those people are so tough. And if they're out here gritting it out, and every time I pass them, they're running, they're not walking a step, then, I can definitely keep going just like they are. So I just kind of tried to like, and there's people out there that look like they like super injured their knee or hip or something, and they're just hobbling along, just dragging themselves through. And it's kind of evident. Sometimes I've seen them multiple times that at some point they could have stopped. Like they walked through the pit like that, and they're still out here, doing everything that they can. So I think in a race like this, when there's multiple laps like that, it's just really inspiring to like go past like Blind Pete a few times, Roxy and her owner. That's really sad that I know the dog, not the owner's name. But so I go and I chat with her every single lap. And, there was a whole group dragging the wheelchair through, and it was just like, it's really easy to get outside your own suffering and just be just so grateful that you're there amongst these people that are just like, so inspiring and keep pushing on no matter what. And I think that feeling really permeates the entire race and really pushes everybody on.
You finished 40 miles at 7:19 in the morning with about a 40-minute lead on second. You chose to go out for your 9th lap to hit 45 miles. What was your thought process that last lap? You knew you had an hour and 10 minutes to hit 45 miles.
Well, I didn't. So I lost, on my 8th lap, I lost my watch on hang time. So as I was sliding down, it was like somebody just like took my watch and hooked it off and it fell in the water. So I was like, all right, I guess now I don't know what time it was. So I lost it and I was like, okay, so the only thing I can do now is just run as hard as I can. And my, like I was saying, my math skills are not good, normally. And like 8 hours into an endurance race, they're really not good. So I was just running as fast as I could, quite honestly, just like maintaining the kind of pace that I was putting out. And it was funny actually, because the CBS people, when I was crawling through the black hole, they came up and they were like, so are you maintaining, like, is your speed okay? And I'm like, I really have no idea. Like you tell me, am I going to finish in time? Because I don't know what time it is. I don't know how fast I'm running. So it was just more about like putting out enough effort that I was going to make it through. And I passed Sarah Knight, I think, half a mile or something, or a mile from the finish line, and it was 19 minutes left. And she's like, oh my God, you're going to do 45. And I was like, yeah, maybe. I don't really know right now. And she's like, yeah, no, I think if you walk backwards, you would make it. And so it was only at that point that I kind of felt like I was safe and had actually made it, just because I had at that point really no concept of, what exactly I needed to do to get it in on time. So
you finished your 45th mile at 8:14 in the morning. How did you feel crossing the finish line?
Oh my gosh, just amazing. I think, those last 2 laps, I just really had to like hunker down and push really hard. And I think that is just, the most magical part of doing it is just like leaving it out there on the course. And it's just an amazing feeling when you're like, yeah, I left it all and there's not much left. Just to be able to feel that absolute drain, where you just pushed right past where your body was kind of capable of. And I think I'm kind of feeling the effects of that today. Like normally I'm not sore really the days after, but I feel like I really pushed my body more than I normally would at one of these events. And it's a really awesome feeling just knowing that you pushed to that next level and that you're just going to be that much stronger and that much more resilient the next time you face anything, Do
you ever get emotional crossing the finish line?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was fairly emotional, this one, not like crying or anything, just like overjoyed and happy. And like the whole time I was running, I was like, you can just collapse when you hit the ground after you cross the finish line. Like just make it across, that finish line. And then I kind of imagined that I would just like just slump on the floor and just like, pass out there. But it's then when you see that finish line and you hear people cheering and you just kind of get carried away again with that. And all of a sudden you just have this renewed sense of energy. I know a lot of people are like, how did you have that much energy at the finish line? But I didn't. I honestly had planned to like collapse, and just lay there for hours. But, it's just so uplifting, that energy. It's just absolutely magical. And then just seeing all your friends and people, like you had raced with all year, and my pit crew, Gina, who was like just amazing. And, you just get this like excitement about this crazy adventure that you guys all went on together. And it's like your second wind just hits you.
What are your thoughts looking toward World's Toughest Mudder?
I'm excited. You never know what they're going to throw at you at World's Toughest. So I think, too, with the toughest series, you get used to things like, okay, there's going to be hang time, and there's going to be funky monkey, and there's going to be the T-bones, perhaps, and, reach around for sure. So you have these ideas in your head about what it's going to be, but I think with World's Toughest, you just literally never know, other than the fact that there's going to be a cliff jump. And I'm just really excited about seeing the community out there and just once again getting to feel that amazing energy from just being out there and seeing everybody. And I think just the fact that the field is growing, and I really, really like the people that are out there, not just completing the event, but also the elites. I think the people that are involved in our sport are just different from the people that you meet usually in everyday life. And maybe it's from the experience of being there, or just maybe it's who's drawn to the event. But for me, I always say that's most of what drives me. I mean, the obstacles are cool. Being out there running through the mud is just amazing. But it's really like the people that are here that are involved in this. I think that keeps us all so absolutely hooked and so absolutely obsessed with toughest, right?
You recently opened a gym in Vancouver. How is Van City OCR doing?
It's doing really well. And kind of our problem was that too well. So we thought that, for the first few months, it would be slow, just like opening up a regular gym. But we had one spot on the news, and it came in the next day before opening, and there's a lineup down the block. And so it's been also a really challenging summer, not only just having the kids and training and all that, which is kind of my usual thing, but just setting up the gym and finding new staff. And just trying to, because we thought 1 or 2 staff on at a time would be okay, but now we're just having to find heaps of new staff and open more hours. And so, yeah, it's been different challenges for sure than we thought that we'd get this year. And I mean, you can't complain and be like, oh, too many people love obstacles, so woe is me. So yeah, it's been really amazing. It's just been really busy, and I guess we just didn't totally anticipate how popular that obstacle training is. But yeah, it's been really neat watching just the people come out and just totally crush it and do things that surprise themselves. I mean, it's funny because a lot of people come in and they're like, I just want to do like the really high warp wall on the salmon ladder, and I'm 8, and you're like, I don't think that's totally going to happen right now. So I think they're humbled because, of course, the Ninja Warrior TV show, it looks so easy and so cool, and why can't everybody do that? And then people are quickly humbled, but then it's like they get this renewed, like, wait 1 second, I don't want to just give up because I can't do the coolest things. I'm going to work hard and get myself to the point where I can do these like basic fundamental things like swinging from ring to ring, or, climbing a rope and stuff like that. So yeah, seeing people come in, get humbled, and then kind of redefine their goals and attack them is a really neat experience for sure.
Allison, are there any sponsors you're working with, or anything you want to plug while we're talking?
Yeah, I mean, I've been sponsored by Reebok now for a couple of years, and I love them. I'm very blessed to have them come into my life. I worked on a campaign with them. But no, other than that, I work with a local running store and then our gym here. But yeah, mostly it's just Reebok, and then I could possibly plug Spartan Race. But,
go for it.
I am on their Canada Pro team, and I think Spartan Race in Canada has gone a long way since it was last year. It was really like people would come and do a Spartan Race in Canada and be like, "Wow, this is like Spartan Races like 7 years ago." Like they have a wall and they have like a bucket, and everything's just kind of like hasn't changed at all and hasn't like progressed, I guess, with the rest of the industry, but there's been new ownership, and I think they've just done a phenomenal job this year. So, for me, I'm kind of like what Matt B. Davis is often saying about the high tide and all boats rise. I just feel like everybody should just get along and, make the whole industry grow and make the whole sport grow, and everybody kind of works together. But hopefully we'll see that once all of the stuff kind of settles more for the different companies that are involved, and hopefully they can work a little bit more hand in hand. But my passion in this is really just kind of seeing the sport as a whole grow and the community as a whole grow, and just being a part of it. I'm 35 now. I'm no young chicken anymore, but it's been kind of neat to be part of the whole obstacle movement since fairly early on, and just to kind of watch it grow and to continue to be a part of that. I just feel super grateful, and just seeing the people that are drawn to the sport and being a part of that community is just like, it's a huge blessing.
Special thanks to Allison Tai for appearing in this episode. Well done, Allison. You can follow her on Facebook, facebook.com/YoMamaSoFit. That's a play on Yo Mama So Fat jokes. Remember those? Are those still a thing? Your mama's so fat when she sits around the house, she sits around the house. You remember those. Josh and Carlo have a new video online. There's a link to it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/worldstoughestpod. shoot me an email at willhicks@gmail.com, or you can call our listener voicemail line if you want to talk about Chicago or just tell your Tough Mudder story. 302-786-9868. That's 302-RUN-WTM4. You can also leave us a review on iTunes, like all the other cool kids are doing. Hey, World's Toughest Mudder is coming fast. You are going to do great. Thanks a lot, you guys.